And welcome to another episode of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. I'm your host, Chris Grosso, and for this episode, very much looking forward to having this guest on. He's been in the sports broadcasting business for 30 plus years, has done play-by-play for Major League Baseball, has called games for the Cubs, Diamondbacks, most recently with the Cincinnati Reds, was a part of the Fox #2 baseball broadcast team for a number of years, has done play-by-play for the National Football League on Fox for a number of years, has done play-by-play of the NCAA football, has done national championships. This man has called big games, has had great calls throughout his career. Most recently, he is the host of the Dialed-In podcast. He is Thom Brennaman. And Tom, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Chris. Thanks for having me. Hope you're doing all right.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I was telling you a little bit before. Got hit with a snowstorm here, so kind of bunkered down here in the North Jersey area.
I got you. I think they're boarded up probably where we are in Ohio all the way across the eastern seaboard. So I think we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, well, we got it's projected we get 2 feet here. So that would kind of suck.
Lord.
We did
That's a lot.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. We did some shoveling earlier this morning. Might have to do some later, but first thing I wanted to ask, and a little icebreaker here, just want to get this out of the way. You go professionally by Thom. That's how you spell Tom, not Tom.
Yeah.
Did you always go by that? Did you always spell Tom that way?
Yeah. My dad had a brother, has a brother named Thom Brennaman who lives down in Norfolk, Virginia. And but my dad had a roommate at the University of North Carolina when he was going to school there who spelled it Thom. And so he thought that he would name me after his brother and spell it the way his fraternity brother spelled it. So thus Thom.
Little unique, but I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, if you stop and think about it, Thomas is Thomas. So,
yeah.
Why not Tom Thom?
Yeah, well, I guess I would say 99% of Toms go by Thom. But
yes, they do. Yes, probably higher than that.
I like it, though. It's a little unique. But
okay.
I saw you're in the podcast game now. How's that been? You had some great guests. Urban Meyer, who's obviously been in the news recently. Troy Aikman and Brian Billick. How's that been going so far?
It's been going great. It's a total change of pace for me. I lost my job last summer broadcasting for both the Cincinnati Reds and for Fox Sports, although technically I'm still an employee, just a suspended employee at Fox Sports for a homophobic slur that I used off the air. It wound up on the air. And so, I got to find a way to make a living. I have a wife and 2 kids in high school. I've been fortunate and blessed to have a, really, really great career for a long, long time. And I hope it doesn't come to an end. So I got to try to something else to do. The podcasts have been great. I don't mean that necessarily I'm great, but the guests have been great, as you just mentioned.
I've enjoyed it too.
So this week we're going to have Dusty Baker on the show, and I'm really looking forward to having him on because he just flew back. I talked to him 2 days ago. He was just flying back. He was one of 50 people that was at Henry Aaron's funeral down in Atlanta over the weekend, and so I'm looking forward to having him on this week.
That's a huge guest. That's a huge name. So just another name to add to the resume there. But how's life been in general? I mean, you talked about, obviously, the incident that happened over the summer.
Yeah.
Are you hoping that, obviously, you're a suspended employee right now. Are you hoping that, I think in a sense, time heals all wounds. I see you've been very remorseful, very apologetic about what happened. Are you hoping that as time subsides that you'll be able to get back into the business again and have full-time employment with a team or a station or whatever?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the game plan. And hey, look, I'm a very spiritual guy, and I think that God has a bigger plan for me somewhere down the road. I've said to my wife once since all this has happened, or at least 10,000 times, that I think at the end of the day, it's going to be the best thing that ever happened to me and to us. It hasn't been easy.
No.
In fact, it's been there have been some days been pretty tough. I have never been, nor am I now or ever will be, a homophobe. But if you Google my name, and my kids are in high school, and they Google my name, and that's what it says that I am. And so I've got to do my part to learn from all this and to grow from it. And I've spent a lot of time the last 6 months trying to do just that and try to, right my wrong and try to be a better guy. And, hopefully there's somebody out there, good Lord willing, who says, okay, well, let's take a look, from a macro standpoint. And I was never a perfect announcer, never will be, not a perfect person, never will be. But, for 34 years, I broadcast in Major League Baseball for 27 years, announced in the NFL. And I certainly hope that there's someone out there that'll say, okay, is one mistake, and it was a terrible mistake, make no mistake about it. It was a brutal mistake. But is that one mistake who this guy is, and is he going to be defined by that? And so we'll find out if someone's willing to give me that chance again.
I absolutely think you deserve another chance.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I obviously don't know you too well. We're just kind of getting to know each other a little bit here, but, everyone makes mistakes. And it's not like you have a repeat history of making a mistake. You made one homophobic slur. It obviously offended a lot of people, but yeah, I think you absolutely deserve a second chance. I think you will get a second chance. And I just wanted to talk about that night in Kansas City. I'm sure you don't like going back and reliving it and re-talking about it, but just when you made that slur, unbeknownst to you, you were on a hot mic, which I'm not in the live TV business production, but I guess that means, you were being recorded. When you found out that this had gone viral, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I knew it was over. It was in between games of a doubleheader, and I'd gone back into a little office. We were, like every other announced team, we were broadcasting the road games from a studio and announcing the game off of a monitor. And one of my bosses at the Reds had sent the clip of it. And as soon as I saw it, my whole world started to spin.
Yeah, I can imagine.
To feel sorry for me in any form or fashion, because there's no reason to. There are people and children and animals in this world that you can feel sorry for. I'm not one of them. But I knew right then and there that this was, in the world we live in now, this was
right.
The beginning of the end. And so I went back on to start the second game. My phone's blowing up, computer's blowing up. I'm not on social media.
You're better off.
But I was told I know. I was told by one of the guys that I work with that it was all over the place. The reactions are exactly what you would expect them to be, because I hurt a lot of people for what I said. And, then it was about the second or third inning. They had told me to get off the air. And I just said, well, I'm not getting off until I try to, apologize. And so I did. For some people out there, and for the life of me, I still don't get it, how, an apology, it wasn't a good enough apology. There are a lot of those people out there, and, God bless them. They're the ones that they have to live with, feeling that way, that when someone says they're sorry, that it's not good enough. So I did the best I could. It was on live television, and, have apologized thousands of times since then, and I mean every single one of them. It's not just going through the motions or trying to check a box for, trying to get a job back or try to get a job. I just feel horrible for what happened, and I've come to learn a great deal about the true meaning of that word, and when people who are gay, when they hear that word, and what they think of and what it means to them, and some of the memories it's brought back during the course of their lives. And so, I knew it was going to be over that night. And, by the time I got up the next morning, I had gone from having two incredible jobs. I was getting ready to embark on my 28th year of doing the NFL on Fox within like 3 weeks of the season starting. That was over. The Reds was over. And so I went, for the first time in my life, to literally zero income, and I haven't had zero income since I was washing dishes and busting tables at a restaurant down the street when I was 13 years old. So, you know, it was a whole different world, and I earned it. Make no mistake about it. But it's time to now, you know, try to move forward and do good things out there.
Yeah, and you already are. You're starting that process. One thing about the apology I wanted to ask about. Seemed there was a lot of criticism of you kind of halting the apology to talk about the Nick Castellanos home run.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? What was your thought process in that moment? What do you say to the critics of that?
My job at that time was still to call the baseball game. That's what I was paid getting to do. And the timing of it was no question. It's unfortunate. And, you know,
yeah, you can't control that.
My son, who's 15 years old, you know, he is on social media. And, you know, I mean, I wish I had a nickel for every time it's been posted about, you know, I'm a man of faith and, you know, I'm sorry. And, oh, there's a home run by Nick Castellanos. It's become kind of a joke. And, you know, for people who have the time to, you know, make fun of something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see the criticism, but a lot of people.
It's ridiculous. It was unfortunate that it happened that way. Obviously, you know, I never hoped any of it would happen. I never hoped that in the middle of an apology that a home run would happen. You know, when you know, I would just say to someone who thinks that that's really funny, I would ask them to try, just like I try, and unsuccessfully many times, to walk in another person's shoes. I was literally watching my entire professional career go down the tube. I mean, down the drain. And I was doing the best I could at that moment to offer an apology. And I got myself caught into the fact that I was still announcing a baseball game, and that's what happened. But, you know, it's just ridiculous that people – there was a guy that was on LinkedIn who sent that as a comment to my podcast the other day. And, of course, I reached out to him. Well, I mean, I reached out to him, and I just asked him the question. I said, is that your definition of a sense of humor? Do you think this is funny?
Yeah.
And, of course, the guy didn't have the guts to write back. I mean, no. You know, I'll never hear from him.
That's how social media works.
I mean, you know, you know, it doesn't matter. It's over. It's old news. And if people want to continue to make light of it and make fun of it, hey, more power to them. You know, I'm not going to judge who they are. And obviously if they want to judge who I am or what I did or how I did it, that's what they can do.
Was there a part of you when you made that comment, and obviously it went viral and everything, was there a part of you that thought, like, why me? In a sense of like,
no.
In the sense of like, you know, I'm sure like there's a ton of people in broadcasting, TV anchors who, everyone, I mean, a lot of people make jokes, whether most of it's like in jest too, like nothing serious, but, and I don't expect you to throw any people's names under the bus of people who have made jokes or anything, but, you know, I'm sure like this stuff happens all the time, and I'm not condemning. I don't think someone's a bad person off making one comment. But did you ever think, like, why me? Like, I'm sure there's colleagues or people in the business who have said much worse. The only difference was I got caught on a hot mic and they didn't.
No, I've never thought that at all. I just, you know, the only thing I can think of is that I'm the one who earned it, and I'm the one who has to live with it, and I'm the one who put myself in that position. So no, nor would I ever, in any form or fashion, wish what's happened with me to happen to anybody. Does it happen to a lot of people? You know, I'm sure it probably does. I mean, as far as saying something that you certainly don't want over the air, I think that by and large, you know, if you were to follow the conversations of every human being on this earth, outside of how many I don't know, but if everything they said was made public and was
right.
You know, public record, you could go to YouTube and look it up and hear it on the internet or whatever it might be. I think that a lot of us would probably be caught in situations that we would regret and wish we didn't say.
Of course. But you've been doing all the right things since this has happened. You've been very remorseful, like I was saying, very apologetic, just very sincere. And I've seen it looks like you've been doing some outreach with the LGBTQ community. What's some of the stuff you've been doing to make amends for what's gone down?
Well, I started by reaching out to leaders in the greater Cincinnati area in the LGBTQ community who, quite honestly, they have been the most supportive and full of grace and just they've been incredible. And one of them said to me that you shouldn't be surprised by that because I had made the comment that I was surprised. There were letters to the editor that were written by some of the LGBTQ community to the Cincinnati Enquirer about the Reds shouldn't fire me or let me go. There have been a couple of national LGBTQ leaders that I've become very close with, Sid Ziegler out in California and a couple of others, who wrote letters to Fox that I should not be let go. And I probably spent in the last 180 days, however long it's been since that happened, I've probably spent 45 or 55 of those days in some form or fashion and in meeting with different gay organizations and gay people and learning what that word means and really the root of that word and about how, they have been so deeply hurt, both mentally and physically by that word and some of the things that have happened to them. And so, I had never been a homophobe in any form or fashion for any second of my entire life. Now, if somebody heard that word that I said, they'd say that makes you a homophobe. I don't agree with that, but that's for others to decide, not for me to decide. But if there is such a thing as trying to right a wrong, as to try and it sounds cliche, it sounds corny, but it's true, to make the world a better place for people who are gay or are transgender. And starting to learn so much more about that, then, I'm going to be there to try and do that. All I can do is just try to be a better guy and good Lord willing. I think a lot of people have been, glad that I've gotten involved in this endeavor. There have been others in the gay community, not many, but it's certainly eye-opening when you have some of them that think that you're only there because you're trying to check a box and get a job. And I certainly respect the way they feel. I get it. I've come to get it. And so you're never going to make everybody happy. You can't do that no matter what you do in life.
No, of course.
Whether you made a terrible mistake like I have or not. And so, if you're going to try to make everybody happy, you're never going to be happy. I feel good about the people that have given me the chance, those that I hurt the most, and I feel good about the growth that I've had as a man just in the last 6 months, and will continue in that same vein.
Do you think it's fair that for someone like, say, someone in your position, someone similar to you, who never had any controversy throughout a 30-year career, that saying one homophobic slur, that's warranted for possibly being terminated from a company or being put in a position that the outcry is so prevalent that in a sense you're almost forced to resign? Do you think that's fair?
Well, Chris, it's not for me to decide what's fair and what's not fair. I mean, the world's not a fair place, and nobody's ever promised that the world would be a fair place. I mean, do I think that you have to weigh someone's 34-year career against a 3-letter word that they used off the air one time and determine that person all of a sudden is a bad person and that's the kind of person that doesn't deserve a job again? I'm not in a position to make those decisions as far as being able to get a job is concerned. I mean, I fully appreciate the position that those who have to make those decisions, the position that they're in. I think what you have is a very, very strong vocal minority of people who apply incredible pressure, whether it be as sponsors, whether it be as companies, to people like the head of Fox Sports or the head of Cincinnati Reds or the head of ESPN or the head of any organization, doesn't have to be just broadcasting, that says you should not hire that person again, ever again. And you get into the whole thing is, okay, well, if I bring him back, are you going to pull your sponsorship? There's a lot of that kind of thing that goes on. And these people are responsible to other people for, how much advertising are they getting for an NFL game? How much advertising are they getting for a Major League Baseball game or a college basketball or pro basketball, whatever it might be? And so, I appreciate the situation that they're in. Obviously, I'm biased in feeling that, the body of work, in this case, would hopefully lead someone, and there will be someone out there, sooner or later, someone out there, good Lord willing, is going to say, you know what, the guy may not be the best announcer in the world. He might not be the best human being in the world as far as, and nobody is. I'm not just saying me, and not because of what I said, but all of us make mistakes in some form or fashion, like we said earlier, every day. So, hopefully somebody out there will say, you know what, we'd be willing to maybe take a chance on this guy, one more time and see what happens and be able to stand up to whatever some of those pressures might be.
Yeah, and I'm sure that opportunity will come. I have no doubt about it. You've had a great career. You're doing all the right things. You're very remorseful. You've been speaking up about it, talking about how that word has impacted people. And I'm very confident you're going to get a job again. So just wanted to wish you the best of luck in that endeavor.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll switch gears to something more, just a little different here. I just wanted to talk about your career a little bit. I started reading Joe Buck's autobiography recently, and it kind of made me think about the genesis for most sports broadcasters. His situation or his experience was he was immersed from it, like right from a young age, traveling with his dad. He was at most home games, going on the road with him. He knew right away at like a very young age he wanted to do sports broadcasting for a living. Did you have a similar experience? I know your dad, obviously the longtime voice of the Cincinnati Reds, but did you have a similar mindset and experience that this was the job I wanted to do at 5 years old? Just what was the experience like from, I guess, your aspirations and what you wanted to do for a living?
Well, no, I didn't know that's what I wanted to do at all. I got into college, and I was already at 2 years into college before I decided that might be something that I would try and pursue. And so I had a chance to work at a commercial radio station in Athens, Ohio, where I went to college at Ohio University. And that really started the whole thing for me. I'm often amazed. We have a daughter that's a senior in high school, and so she's going through the whole college application process. And a lot of people listening who have been down that road with their kid, it's exciting, but it's maddening, and it's all those kinds of things. And for young people to know what they want to do at such a young age,
I'm
tough. Always amazed. I mean, I wasn't one of those kids.
What was the process? You go to Ohio University.
Yeah.
You graduate. What are your jobs?
Well, I came back after my sophomore year and started working at the radio station in Athens. I started off, I wasn't on the air. Then I eventually got on the air. I was a disc jockey for a rock and roll station, and then moved into a talk show kind of format. And then the women's basketball team at Ohio University had success, made the NCAA tournament a couple of years, and we were already doing the men's games on radio. I wasn't, but our station was. And so they decided to start carrying the women's games, the home games, on the radio, and asked me to do it. And so at that point in time, that really was a catalyst for getting things going. I got hired by the NBC television affiliate, WLWT, in Cincinnati, out of college, not on the air. A series of events took place, and thank God, I mean, by the hand of God, I mean, where some really strange things happened, which enabled me to get on the air much younger than really what would have been the game plan by the guy who ran the station, a guy named Tony Kiernan, who's a rough, tough, gruff New York guy, and just Bobby Knight-like kind of figure who's one of my all-time favorite people in the history of the world. He may not tell you everything you wanted to hear, but he would tell you the way he saw it in no uncertain terms. And so I got a chance to get on the air, and I was anchoring the weekend sports and doing some reporting, and again, series of events. We were the station of the Reds television network, and at the time, most teams in Major League Baseball were doing like 55 to 70 games. I mean, it's hard for young people to imagine that now, but that's the way it was about 30 years. And so I filled in. Jay Randolph and Johnny Bench were doing the games at that time, and I did about 15 games and then got the job full-time the following year and was only in that job for 1 year when I applied for the Chicago Cubs job. And that was you can't say one break was more important than the rest, because were it not for the two that happened before, you can't say the Cubs job was the biggest break. But the Cubs job was on a superstation, WGN. It was on TV coast to coast on every cable system there was. And so that really gave me an opportunity for other people out there to watch my work, hear my work, like it, not like it, whatever. But it was certainly a much larger stage than anything that I had done before.
So when did you get the baseball broadcasting experience? You didn't get that in college, right?
No, what I did, Chris, was, and I tell young people this all the time, who ask me about, getting into broadcasting. Broadcasting in a lot of ways, Chris, is like acting. When Tom Cruise, when he was a younger actor, and he is putting together a tape for people to look at, nobody cared if Tom Cruise went to Yale University, went to Ohio University, or went to Brooklyn Community College. Nobody cares. They looked at him on the air, and they just said, man, that guy's got to be in my next movie if I'm putting together a movie.
Right. And
it's the same thing with a broadcaster. So what I would do is when I was the weekend sports anchor, I would go down to Riverfront Stadium when the Reds were playing there, and I would sit in an empty booth, and I would bring a tape recorder, and I would just rep after rep after rep after rep. Some nights my job meant that I only got to do 2 innings, and some, I could do all 9 innings. But that's the way you got to a point where you could put together a tape, lay it back in those days on the boss's desk, and say, hey, here's the tape. And, then they can make a decision that says, hey, this guy might be worth taking a shot at.
That's wild.
It's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. And I tell it's like young people. I tell them it can be very embarrassing. It can make you really anxious and make you uptight. But if you're a high school kid now, a lot of high schools these day and age, they have broadcast departments and broadcast centers and all that kind of thing. In fact, my wife and I just put one in our local public high school here.
That's very nice of you.
About a year ago. And it gives kids a chance to do the games. But if you're not doing the game and that kind of thing, and I tell them all the time, I said, look, go to your high school baseball game, sit down the right field line, make one team the Cincinnati Reds, make the other team the New York Mets or the New York Yankees, whoever you want. The batter that comes up first is Billy Hamilton. And you can get all the information you want on all of those players because they're in the major leagues. It doesn't matter that your high school is playing another high school. All that matters is you're announcing the game. And the best way to get prep for that is to have information on players and teams. So just make one team the Reds, one team the Mets, and go sit down the right field line, and people are going to look at you, and you're going to feel weird about people hearing you do it, but just go do it. Because when you're applying for that minor league job, when you're getting out of college, again, they're not going to care where you went to school. They don't care if you had a 4.0 grade point average. They don't care. They're hiring an announcer. And they want to hear, can the announcer announce the baseball game? Period.
That's crazy because I think about sometimes people say, oh, you you need experience, you need an education. This is just an example here where sometimes you don't need that education. And I think about my story personally. I went to school for communication, TV, radio, but I was just very shy in school, didn't get involved in the extracurriculars, the school TV station, the school radio station. And now I talk to people in the business. I guess I talk to people in the sports talk radio business. They say, oh, you got to start over. You got to maybe go to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, learn the business. But like from what you're just saying, I know it's kind of different, but it's like you don't always need that education.
No, I mean, look, at the end of the day, do I think that, especially if you're going for a minor league job where they might be asking you to do some other things with the organization? You know, you might be the announcer, but you also might be the media relations director.
Yeah.
You also might be a sales executive for the organization. So there are many skills that your education can be enhanced by, you know, going to a 4-year school or 2-year school, whatever it might be. I'm not suggesting that, you know, they should quit school and try to become an announcer. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, of course.
That impressive. I'm just saying, you know, whatever skills you can get from an education standpoint are only going to help you. They're not going to hurt you. All I'm suggesting is that when somebody's hiring an announcer, it's all about the tape. End of story.
I also think, and this is another thing I wanted to bring up, and especially with sports broadcasting, I think there's some guys, you know, it doesn't matter how much you know, how passionate you are, how enthusiastic you are, how experienced you are. I think a lot of it comes down to an announcer's voice. And I think, like, for you in particular, I think you just have the announcer's voice. I don't know what it is. I guess you were just born with it. But do you think there's some element to, especially play-by-play sports broadcasting, you kind of just have to have the voice with it?
Well, I mean, look, it certainly helps. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think that, you know, people, when they go to tune in, does it help to have a guy who has a pleasant voice to listen to? Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
And you just need that voice to call the big moment, too. That's another thing.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of that, too, Chris, is just the ability to capture that moment and the understanding of when the big moment is there. And it doesn't have to be screaming and yelling. Oftentimes it can be just shutting up and letting the crowd, you know, do the talking rather than the announcer. So, yeah, I mean, having a great voice helps. But, you know, hey, look, I could sit here and tell you, I mean, you know, up where you are, I mean, who had a worse voice at the end of the day than Phil Rizzuto? But Phil Rizzuto had an incredible career as the announcer for the New York Yankees forever. And so there are guys out there that maybe don't have the best voice, but they know how to capture the moment, and they know how to do the nuts and bolts of a 2-1 game or a 12-1 game. And so, you know, does it help? Yeah, it helps. There's no doubt about that.
What are some of your favorite games you've ever done, or some of your favorite calls? You can kind of mix and match, but just what are some of your favorites?
Well, you know, as far as singular moments are concerned, you know, the Derek Jeter flip.
Yeah, I was going to say that's number one.
Well, I mean, that was
at least around here.
You know, it's been played over and over, and you know, ad nauseum. But you know, as far as a game is concerned, when Boise State upset Oklahoma, Fiesta Bowl, and all the crazy plays that went on, and the way the last 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 minutes of that game played out was just incredible. As far as over a length of time, there was nothing like doing the 2001 World Series when I was announcing the Arizona Diamondbacks games, and I did that series on radio for the Diamondbacks. But you know, everything that was going on in the country, it was, you know, a month and a half after 9/11. You know, being in New York and going to ground zero, and I mean, just that whole 10-day time frame of, you know, a lot of people thinking the Diamondbacks couldn't win the World Series against the Yankees. They were going for their third straight. those of us who saw the Diamondbacks were like, I remember just reading the newspapers from all over the country, and like 97% of the people said, the Yankees would win the series in 4 or 5 games. And I'm sitting there going, man, has anybody ever heard of Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling?
Right.
I'm like, the Yankees aren't touching this guy. Either one of them. Nobody was touching those guys.
And they did.
And, series played out, and, to be at, the Diamondbacks win the first 2. They go to New York, and the Yankees win 3 in a row in a fashion that had never been done in the history of the World Series. They won 3 straight games in their final at bat. The whole energy around Yankee Stadium after 9/11, and fans and President Bush and throwing out the first pitch and the bald eagle flying around the ballpark. Then you come back to Arizona, and it gets to the bottom of the 9th inning, and the Diamondbacks beat Mariano Rivera in the bottom of the 9th inning, Game 7. I mean, it was just incredible to be around.
That was an incredible series, and like I said, I was reading Joe Buck's autobiography before, and he kind of had the same insight that you did. How incredible a series that was for him to cover. And yeah, he pretty much echoed the same sentiments that you did. What about the Game 5 of the 2005 NLCS, Albert Pujols, Brad Lidge? What are your memories from that game?
Well,
or that at bat?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Astros were an out away from the first time ever going to a World Series. And the crowd was deafening. Everybody on their feet expecting Lidge to get the final out. It was amazing, the old adage about, you couldn't hear yourself think. But then at the same time, when bat met ball, everybody that was in that ballpark could hear that bat meet ball, because that ball was hit so hard and so far. And then you could hear, the proverbial pin drop in that stadium within 3 seconds. I mean, it was almost indescribable. I've never seen emotion go from one level on one side to the low on the other side in literally one crack of the bat. It was mind-boggling.
Yeah, and like I said, just one of the memorable games, calls, moments you've had in your career. But that pretty much hits on everything I want to get to, Tom. I thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I wish you the best of luck going forward. I'm sure you will find employment again. You'll be successful. You'll be back on your feet. I know what you said in Kansas City is no representation of the person that you are. And like I said, just want to thank you again for coming on for a few minutes, and best of luck, and hope to keep in touch going forward.
Chris, you're going to do great things, buddy. I like your style, and I appreciate you having me on. The best of luck for everything with you moving forward as well. God bless you, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, Tom.
All right. You too, buddy.
Bye-bye. And that'll wrap things up on another episode of Basic Thoughtonomics. As always, I'm your host, Chris Grosso. If you want to follow me on social media, the Twitter handle for the show is @BasicThoughtPod. On Instagram, it's @BasicThoughtsPod. Been a while here since I did an episode, but really enjoyed it. Felt like I dug pretty deep there, asked Tom some pretty good questions, got some pretty good insight out of him. So want to thank him again so much for coming on. Would love to hear any feedback from people who listen, positive, negative, whatever. Would love to hear it. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast too. It's up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. So that's another episode in the books. Thanks, everyone, and hope you have a great week.